I just want to be perfectly clear. When I call a game a filler, I am in no way being pejorative. Some of my best gaming experiences are with so-called filler games. I don't regard them as less than or something you do instead of. It's just a good description for, broadly speaking, an accessible, approachable, relatively quick game.
I thought it was just games you jam in your gaming bag so your good games don't jiggle around. Filler?
I have not met this man. I don't know this man. I cannot vouch for anything this man says.
So what have you got for us today, Mark? What's your first?
Well, let's start off strong. These are all excellent. Fairy Tale is, for our money, I think you would agree with me, the single greatest pure drafting game ever designed.
Agreed.
I have yet to see anything match it. We are not fans of Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders. Fairy Tale is just flatly better. And I have yet to play any game that's a pure drafting game that can compete. It's got built-in hate drafting by virtue of the structure. It's very accessible in terms of the scoring rules. It's very quick. It's great at all player counts from 2 to 5. There's been a whole bunch of different editions. The optional cards are very, very much optional. Wonderful game. Fabulous filler.
Yeah, it's just straight up knowing what to hate draft. That's the thing, right? Other games, it's like, well, he might need this, or I'm not sure. They might need this, or I'm not sure, or I don't understand what's going on. This one is very clear that it is obvious that that person needs this card. I'm going to take it so they can't. And it doesn't hurt you immediately. It's because it's pick 5, play 3. So you can just hate draft for the fun of hate drafting.
And we love lots of other games with drafting. We're huge fans of Blood Rage and a whole bunch of other games. But there, drafting isn't the exclusive mechanism. And so therefore, the comparative absence of hate drafting is okay. If you're going to do pure drafting, you would best make sure that there's player interaction. That's one of the reasons why Fairy Tale has been a perennial favorite here at Swag.
That's Fairy Tale. Mine is going to be first The Crew, which is a trick-taking game. So this might not be so much a filler if the people at the table don't know about trick-taking, because explaining that off the hop might be a little much. But this is great because you just pull out the deck, you throw out a couple objectives, and you're in playing immediately. You can go right into the storybook and do missions if you want, but we just draw off the top, choose your difficulty, and you're right into trick-taking and playing the game.
And the fact that in Mission Deep Sea, the second version, they're both excellent, excellent games. The Space Pluto version and Mission Deep Sea. But the Mission Deep Sea version, that ability to just pick a difficulty level and pick random objectives, means you don't have to consult the campaign book and make the decision about what scenario to do, how difficult or how complex or whatever. You just much, much, much easier to set up a game and go. And honestly, that means that a game session can be as quick as 5 minutes or as long as you need it to be. So if you need to start a filler of unknown duration, honestly, I don't think you could do worse than Mission Deep Sea.
And the reset is immediate.
I don't think you could do better than Mission Deep Sea.
Or worse.
I don't know this man. I've never met this man. I cannot vouch for anything this man says.
And the reset is super fast. You fail a mission, you just simply shuffle, redraw, and go again. There's no sort of resetting the board state or doing anything else. Nice and quick. The Crew, specifically Mission Deep Sea.
Back in my day, all games were Euros, and 99% of Euros were auctions. For Sale has been perennially in and out of print during that period of time. There have been a whole bunch of different editions. For Sale is a marvelous auction filler with delightfully charming art, which adds to its sense of approachability. The theming even is great, because everyone understands the notion of flipping properties, not that anyone in this room would have nearly enough resources to do that kind of thing. But anyway, setting all that aside, not only do you get a fabulous auction game, but you also get to participate in a generations-old controversy about whether you take back half-rounded up or half-rounded down of your bid, which has varied between editions and is fascinating. A new edition has recently been published by Eagle Gryphon where you're buying and selling cars. I don't like the art as much, but that's a matter of taste. There's also an Advisors expansion, which I highly recommend you avoid with all due effort. It merely makes the game longer and less good, because For Sale is a tight 2 rounds, and it really keeps everyone involved at all times. You can sometimes get disadvantaged by turn order, but what the hey, it's a filler. It's not going to take a whole lot of your day. It is all right to be able to roll with such things.
And the art in some of the editions is fantastic, very silly, very fun. For Sale. Mine is Skull. It's a sort of bluffing, bidding type game. You have 3 roses and you have 1 skull, and you're putting tiles down in front of you. And then at a particular point, you can just say, I'm going to not go for it, but you're bidding higher and higher, right? Or I'm just going to start a bid. You can see that you see how people have a number of tiles out. You say, okay, I'm going to start the bid at 3, and you're trying to flip tiles from the top of people's stacks, starting with your own, because you know you're going to go through your own stack completely. So if you're going to bid, don't put the skull in your own stack. And you're trying to hit your target number without flipping up a skull. Great, quick little game. Always a hit at parties.
When first encountering people, new gamers or new people to a gaming group, that's often some of the best times to have a filler, because you don't necessarily know what kind of game they like, or how deep a game they want to play, or how complex of games they're accustomed to. No judgment, there are lots of different kinds of gamers. I find one of the best ways to break the ice is to play a game where you're going to be lying to each other constantly. And Skull's a great example of that. An additional benefit of Skull is that it is a fabulous spectator sport. Because when someone actually calls the bid, and they have to start looking around, wondering whose tiles they can flip over, the faces people pull, the threats that people make, the various intimations that people make about what they've played, it's really enjoyable.
It's such, and the components are just so bare bones. Get it? Bones? Skull?
I don't get it. Explain it 2 or 3 more times.
That's the joke part.
Okay.
That's where we make the big money.
I'm not supposed to laugh now.
So yeah, so there's coasters. This is just the biker edition. There's all sorts of different editions that you can get, but they're just pretty well coasters that you get to play with, and it's great. It's a great bar game or restaurant game, however you want to do it. Skull.
So now some games that are perhaps test the definition of what constitutes a filler. I think one of the great definitions of a filler is that it is accessible to many different kinds of gamers, and that includes many different levels of manual dexterity and ability to manipulate things. And that's why I give a special mention to For Science. Full disclosure, I'm a personal friend of the designer, but I love the game sincerely. It has made a genuine effort to make a cooperative dexterity game that is accessible to people with, say, even some kinds of hand tremors or other physical disabilities, and it's only going to last maximum 15 minutes. Now, why, Walker, why do you blanch at the notion of For Science being a filler?
Well, sure.
Mentioning nothing in particular.
Well, sure, the timer's set for 15 minutes, and you only play that long, but there's a little bit of rules explanation to go in there.
But here
a little bit of setup, and a little bit of shuffling, and a little bit of emptying out the box, and...
The setup is not onerous. The setup can be done by other players while someone's explaining the rules. The rules are relatively approachable by virtue of the fact, another great thing about For Science is a wonderful filler, because there are lots of different roles that people can specialize on. Somebody wants to build, do nothing but build, they can do that. And indeed, For Science kind of revolutionizes building. You may think you know how to stack objects, but trying to transform the cures, which someone else could focus on, for example, into actual building, marvelously mind-building. And then there's the tile laying. If someone wants to focus on the tile laying and never touch a block, they could do that too. I've used For Science as a filler. I've had great success with it.
Don't get me wrong, it's great. It's great for that, and another reason why it's great for that 15 minutes is because you say once you've taught the rules and you get through the 15 minutes, and the person you're waiting for hasn't shown up, or the other people at the other tables aren't done yet, you can go again, and you know it's only going to be 15 minutes long. So once you've got the first game under your belt, then you can just keep hitting that 15-minute time thing, and you're good to go.
I think Walker is operating under an irrational prejudice on the basis of the size of the box. I think he is being sizist, and I think he is exaggerating in his head the duration of the setup and the difficulty of the rules explanation by virtue of the size of the box.
100%, because this is what what you should actually bring as a filler game. See, small box, small time, easy rules, standard deck of cards. This is a game called Regicide. You can simply bring your own deck of cards, download the rule book, and you're ready to go. This will invite people in because they recognize a standard deck of cards. It won't scare them away with this giant box and tons of components. But they should be. Are we having competition here? Is this what this is? Are we these games fighting?
No. We're just challenging each other's ideas.
Good.
And they should be afraid because Regicide will kick their butts.
It's true. I think of all the cooperative games I've played over the last few years, this is by far the hardest.
And please, people, across social media, stop telling me every time you win a game at Regicide. It's not funny anymore. You are bullying. This is unfair. Now, the reason why I don't think Regicide is a filler, first of all, I think Regicide is possibly one of the greatest works of game design of the past 5 years or so, by virtue of the magic they've been able to accomplish with a standard 52-card deck, with, by the way, marvelously endearing artwork. It is absolutely worth getting the Regicide deck, but you could just try it out with a standard deck of cards right now if you were so inclined.
I want to be precise. 54.
I apologize.
I just want to make sure we're not misleading people.
Well, sometimes you don't play with the two jokers. Now, don't you, Walker?
It's true. And that being said, I think they made it this way because standard is, you have they have the one card that is the sort of rule card.
Right.
Because
the reference.
Which is true, because when you go to printers, when you do a standard deck, it is that 55 cards. It is the 52 cards, the two jokers, and one card that teaches either, your solitaire or your...
These are fascinating factoids. Do you want to hear another fascinating factoid?
Sure.
Between the two of us, I'm the one who's accused of being pedantic. The reason why I don't think Regicide is a filler, though, necessarily, is because the rules are pretty technical. And in order to play Regicide well, it relies on mastery of using the special ability of the 4 different suits, and first-time players have difficulty internalizing that. And so, if I didn't know anything about the person involved, would I consider whipping out Regicide? Absolutely. That is one of the reasons why I carry a copy of Regicide with me wherever I go in my purse. It's in there right now. But I wouldn't consider it a filler, both because of the difficulty of the technicalities involved and by virtue of the fact that the playtime, I think, is longer than any of the games on this table, probably longer than any 2 of the other games that we've talked about thus far.
Not if you lose real fast. It's true. The fact that all the different suits have their own power, and then where people get hung up is the fact that the bosses that you fight are immune to that particular power. That is the biggest hurdle that normally at least that I face.
And or how animals work, and or how the timing of powers work, and or going again. Like, look, it's not a marvelously complicated game. I just think that in terms of rules grit and in terms of length, it is slightly past the ideal filler length. That's nothing to knock against it. Wonderful, wonderful game. Let us proceed on to our honorable mentions, Walker.
We have Cockroach Poker.
If you're going to lie to people, I would actually prefer Cockroach Poker to Skull, but they're both, you can't go wrong with either of them. Fabulous games of bluff.
And then really simple word games like Code Names or Just One. Both of them are fantastic. Just One is great, especially if you just want to jump right into a game. Same Code Names, a little bit more on the rules because, one person has to be a captain. That's where you're going to fall into a little bit of problem, but not so much. And then last but not least, we have a newcomer to the table, which is Scout.
Scout is a marvelous climbing game reminiscent of President or Millionaire, but with the fabulous ability of being able to modify your hand as you go. Was recently nominated for the SDJ, sadly didn't win. Fabulous game, highly recommended.
Yeah, not only modify your hand as you go, but at the beginning it sort of fixes that problem where you dealt a terrible hand. Well, just flip them all the way around and maybe, the other way is a much better hand. Scout. Fabulous game.
We love fillers. I want to play all these right now.
It's true.
Wonderful games. Frequently do not get the respect they deserve. And these are honestly, we left about a dozen more on the chopping room, on the editing room floor.
Brought tons, yes.
Yeah. We love fillers. If you want more recommendations or if you have more to give, why don't you leave a comment on this web zone?
On the clickety-clacks. You just put the name down. People will read it and
Right.
they'll look into your game.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.